The time is just gone 9:39 a.m. We continue with our discussion, and our focus now turns on the United States of America. Now, Donovan Williams, international relations expert, has written a very interesting article, and it is worth a read. And talking about the United States of America, the American crown, and America's position as the superpower in the world. But what does this actually mean for the rest of the world? What does it mean for humankind? The United States empire. And this is the reason why we are unpacking, because we know that the United States of America have been active participants in this latest genocide, this carnage, this brutality, and as has been the case in many. We've seen the occupations of Afghanistan, we've seen the occupations of Iraq, we've seen so much Vietnam as well. We can go back into history, and there's just so much that the United States of America has been involved in. Donovan, good morning to you. As always, we thank you. We appreciate your time.
No, thank you, Iniat, and thank you for inviting me on your show. I love coming onto the show, and also greetings to all the listeners, both on YouTube or whichever platform they are using. Thank you.
Well, Donovan, I was just having a brief read through your article, and clearly it is eye opening, it is thought provoking. It raised many an eyebrow because the United States of America is central to this carnage that is unfolding in Gaza as well. And looking at the American empire, and you've gone into some historical detail as well with regards to the United States of America. So just take us through some of the key issues going back historically, and also looking at the reason why you are saying that the United States empire has not been good for humankind.
Yeah, thank you, Iniat. A picture is painted and through history that the US, it didn't really want to get involved in world politics or international issues. It's not a colonial power like, say, the UK or France or Spain, the colonial powers, the former colonial powers. In fact, you wouldn't say the US is not a colonial power. But all of this is not necessarily true, and it's not rooted in history. Um, so you had something in the 1800s with President Monroe, Monroe, which was called the Monroe Doctrine, where a fictitious wall, an imaginary wall, was supposed to have been built around the U.S. to say we don't want to get involved with the rest of the world. In other words, with Europe. In particular, because that's where the colonial powers were, but that's not true, because also, as you know, that or as listeners may know, that California was Mexico, and Mexico was a Spanish colony, and they defeated Mexico to take California and Texas and a whole lot of different states. All those states were all part of Mexico, and to be part of the United States. So they didn't liberate them; it was a land grab. As simple as that, with armies. The whole Davy Crockett story is actually, and the Alamo is actually about frontiersmen from the United States fighting against Mexicans to take the land. So the United States is a colonial power. But then also what it does, it paints this picture as reluctancy, in here, that in that they didn't want to join the predecessor to the United Nations, the League of Nations, because there wasn't a veto and so forth. It's not true. There was a veto in the in the League of Nations, but except it wasn't for 4 or 5 countries, it was for 15 countries that had the veto. So there was a difference. There was more countries with the veto, but there was a veto. The problem becomes, it is put across that the US doesn't want to be in charge of the world, but it's reluctantly doing so, which is not true. So what we have is a country acting like it's not, that it doesn't want to be in charge of the world. And then you have all this insecurity that if you don't play up to this country, if you don't act like it's the most important thing to you, they go on a massive propaganda machine to make to poll catch you, to put you in a particular way. South Africa went through that. Recently, in terms of Russia and Ukraine, you have local people arguing on behalf of the United States, local commentators. Also linked with that is then you had the Lady Art fiasco, where we are accused. Now, the argument one makes there, let's say, for example, let's say, hypothetically speaking, our floundering arms industry did actually sell arms quietly to Russia. Would that give the US the right to polecat South Africa? Would that give the US the right to enter into South African politics and push for the overthrowing of our government, especially if the government is re-elected in 2024? Because that's what it comes across as. And the last point made in them, or the last 2 points made in the article through history, is that every one of our multilateral global bodies, even if the US is a part of it or not, is infected and polluted by the US, most notably the United Nations. But it's not just the United Nations. You have the Kyoto Protocol and the Non-Proliferation Nuclear Treaty, which Russia is saying we're not going to be part of this anymore because the US is not signed up to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, but it dictates who can be able to have nuclear arms or not, who can use nuclear arms, or not nuclear arms, nuclear energy. It even dictates that, as Iran has found out. It doesn't join. We had the World Conference Against Racism and the World Sustainable Development Summit here in South Africa. The US did not attend. Its presidents refused to attend, but it dictates what the declaration must be, what must be decided upon. This is how the US operates. And the last 2 points is that Trump at least was honest. Trump was saying, we are in charge of the world. We don't want to be you. We don't want to hide. You come and talk with us. You come and deal with us directly. He at least was honest. And also what Trump did, he refused to get involved in any wars. And that's why they got rid of Trump, because it's all about the military industrial complex and the US's economy, which makes money out of them making the world. And this is the major point. The world is insecure with the US. There's always a war. You pointed Vietnam, there's Syria recently, there's the Korean War, since World War II. Since World War II, where they rescued Europe, the US only rescued Europe, none of us, right? They have made the world a lot more insecure, and they have exploited the world for their own economic benefit through wars. And I think that's the point that is made very clearly in that article. I hope that covers you, Inyat.
Well, it certainly does. But also, I think you make many more interesting points. And, not only militarily, and militarily, we've seen the U.S. presence right across the entire world. We see military bases right across the entire world. And this is a way they actually maintain their dominance and their hegemony as well, using military as a threat. But also, you speak about riding roughshod against all the institutions, the multilateral institutions, the global institutions, right across the entire world. And again, other threats, other form of threats, economic threats. AGOA is a perfect example of what we experience in South Africa. And this has been the behavior, this has been the actions of the United States of America for a very, very long time. But yet, we know internally, the United States of America is sitting with a whole host of problems. They've got problems of their own internally, and at some point in time, that bubble is going to burst, and the world is going to come to terms. The world is going to wake up to the fact as to who the United States of America truly is, and the damage and the mayhem and the carnage and the destruction in every aspect of our lives that the United States, through its control of and its dominance, has actually created for the rest of the world.
Yeah, let's look at how this hegemony works, right? Because we can speak quite easily about it. And AGOA is a great example. Firstly, AGOA, as the article makes the point, is not a trade agreement. It's a political agreement. And yet it is painted as a trade agreement by generally all the supposed experts within our country. It is a political agreement where the US decides which countries and which goods from Africa will be exempted. So they give access to the American market, which is still the largest market in the world. And make no bones about it. The US, China can talk about how large they are, etc. There's more Rolls Royces sold in the US than any other place in the world. By far, the US market is still, and the debt of the US doesn't matter because everybody needs the dollar, because there's no gold standard, there's a dollar standard, and that's a discussion for another time, which I'm not an economist, but economists can talk about it, although I have written about it as well. The matter is that with AGOA, the US has control to say, we're going to dump And the best example is chicken, substandard chicken that South Africa doesn't meet our standards. But if you want access to our market and with certain goods, we will give you, we will allow you to trade exempted from customs and that. You can come and trade those goods, but we can dump chicken in your country. But it's more than that. When South Africa decides that it will be non-aligned on the Russia-Ukraine matter, local commentators will tell South Africa, you are risking being expelled from AGOA. You can't do this. And of course, now, and I think Mags had earlier said how clear our government is on the matter of the behavior of Israel and the issue of who is the perpetrator of violence in the current matters within in Gaza and the West Bank and so forth. Right? That we are very clear. We are being told you are, as because the AGOA summit or forum was being held, you risk being kicked out of AGOA. You can't. You must pull back from talking about you're talking about what's happening there. So it is used as a political tool by persons who want us to parrot the US. This is how US hegemony works. It doesn't even need to raise it itself. It's got others to raise it. And we need to be cautious and we need to be wary and we need to stand up to those voices. And that's part of the reason why I wrote this article, is that we have a lot of local people telling us it is normal and customary and correct for the United States to be in charge. And if we agree with Russia, it's Russian trolls who are making us think in that way. If we agree with China, it's a Chinese propaganda machine. We had terrible things happen in India because we've had local commentators be part of a New York Times article where they can paint China as this huge propaganda machine controlling people, and people in India get arrested for that. And so all of these things are linked. All of these things is about American hegemony, making certain it remains central, making certain it is in control of your country's destiny. And then a stick is used to remind you. You know, we're coming towards the December period and there's always Christmas movies. And one of the very famous Christmas movies that come out all the time, and hopefully there are young viewers and listeners as well, is Love Actually. And in the Love Actually movie, there is negotiations that go on between the British Prime Minister and his team with the American president. And the American president is a bully. He's a bully where he basically tells the UK that we're going to just take whatever we want because you have to do that because we are American. And this is the overall point of the article, which I want people take away from this, is that please understand that the United States is a bully. And the only way you deal with a bully is you bully a bully. If you don't bully the bully back, what's going to happen? They're just going to ask you for more and more and more. They're first going to ask you for your lunch, then they're going to ask you for your money, then they're going to take your books, then they're going to beat you up, and they will just want more and more, and you will become fragile. And bullies are generally insecure. So we must bully this United States. We must not allow to be bullied by it.
Well, Donovan, I just wish we had more time to talk. Unfortunately, time is of the essence because I'm sure there's a lot more we can actually unpack. But for now, we thank you. We appreciate, as always, you taking time out, Donovan, and talking to us right here on Salam Media.
No, thank you, Ineet, and thank you for everybody listening me to Drone On. And please, everybody, join the ceasefire campaign. Please make your voices heard. Please make certain that we cannot sit. We were silent in 1994 with what happened in Rwanda, because we were celebrating our freedom, our political liberation. We cannot be silent now. Please let your voices be known. Please, please, please raise your voices. Please join Mags and Them's campaign and say you are part of it. Say it in whatever way, on whichever format, because we cannot be quiet in this turn. Thank you, Inyat, and thanks to your listeners as well.
All the best to you. Please take care and be safe. Donovan Williams with us this morning, international relations expert. Again, the United States of America, the spotlight on the U.S. and also in light of what is happening in Palestine, United States Central. And this is the reason why Donovan Williams is saying there can never, ever be peace in our world if the U.S. remains in charge. It is a bully. And the only way you treat a bully as you bully him back. And with that, we're going to go for a break. We come back, we'll be joined by Mohammed Amin Minty, chairperson of the FMYO, the Forsberg Muslim Youth Organization.